Today is both a somber and a joyous occasion. As I think all of you in the room are aware, we recently lost Dr. Michael Stricklin, who was one of the founders of our organization and certainly an important contributor through all these years to Q methodology. And just this past summer, the executive committee decided that it was time to recognize Dr. Stricklin for the Stephenson Award, which is the Society's most prestigious award. And he gratefully accepted that award when it was made known to him. But when we do give the award, we always have a ceremony. And Dr. Diane Montgomery, who is also a longtime veteran Q methodologist and someone who was particularly close to Dr. Stricklin, will accept the award on his behalf. And you should know that Dr. Stricklin asked her to accept the award on his behalf. So without, I just want to read the inscription on the award, and then Dr. Montgomery has some thoughts that she'd like to share with you all. I think many of you know that Mike was for many years at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. He then did some work at the Federal University in Brazil. He brought Q methodology to Brazil. And it says, Mike Stricklin's PCQ software helped liberate Q analysis from mainframes at the dawn of the personal computer age. PCQ facilitated the analysis of Q datasets on PCs and advanced the assessment of Q data by providing varimax and judgmental factor rotation options. Stricklin also advanced basic research about Q by exploring the subtle but significant judgment investigators make when they select among the quantitative options with undergird factor analysis. Stricklin additionally pioneered Q methods use in Brazil and has remained an exemplary mentor to Q devotees regardless of their level of experience or geographical location for more than 40 years, September 15, 2022. And those of you who knew Mike knew how dedicated he was to the work of I4S and how dedicated he was to the advancement of Stephenson's ideas, and even more importantly, how encouraging he was to everyone in the community, especially those who had just caught the Q bug. And he was someone that was widely admired by this group and is so deserving of this recognition. And now I'd like to introduce Dr. Diane Montgomery, who has some remarks that she would like to offer. Thank you.
I must be channeling Mike because I'm getting a little teary. And he would be. And Mike would say, thank you, and sit down. But I talked to Sherry, his wife. She's got a few things for me to say here. I will be visiting Sherry and Mike's family next Tuesday in Hillsboro, Oregon, at which time I'll relay your remarks and the kinds of things that you have to offer for him. But Sherry says this: Mike valued connections. She really hopes that our international group of scholars will read the obituary that was written by Gustavo, Mike's highly treasured, valued colleague in Brazil, who wrote just hours after learning of Mike's passing an obituary that was then the next day published in a Brazilian paper. Woods, Mike's son, translated the Portuguese into English, and he sent it to Bob Braswell. Bob Braswell put it on the listserv, so it's available to all of you, and I can also easily get it to you. Sherry said many of you may know of Gustavo, Woods, and of course our international flavor of Mike's life's work. Mike valued Q as family. He remembers all the kindnesses that Dr. Stephenson's family showered on Mike and Sherry's family. She was recalling a trip to Washington, D.C. when Charles Stephenson invited them into his home and a family member gave them a D.C. tour. And she had a lot of other Stephenson and Stricklin family members. Mike valued Q. Sherry noted not only the kindness shown to their family, but also how instrumental Dr. Stephenson was in encouraging Mike when he was starting his work as a Q methodologist. In fact, there's the great commission Stephenson gave Mike on the day of his defense. Sherry said to check it with Rob Logan, and I did check with Rob Logan. Is this really true? Because Mike Stricklin and Rob Logan defended their Q dissertations on the very same day. So yes, and Rob said, yeah, it's pretty close. So, Sherry said that Dr. Stephenson told Mike that although Mike might not be the top publisher, the top researcher, he had faith in his other commissioned work. Okay, wait for it, here it comes. The Great Commission. Dr. Stephenson told Dr. Stricklin, Mike, you are a master communicator. You will spread the news of Q among other generations, other researchers, and throughout the world. Well, Mike valued very much the Stephenson Award, his commission, and the Brazilian Award that he received also since summer. He lived up to that commission. You'll all remember a way in which that he has been spreading the news, including his openness to help us, welcoming questions, granting us all the ability to feel confident in what we're doing. I talked to Mike a lot since he heard of his failing health in June. And at one very recent call, he said to me, after he received word of the award, he said, Diane, people are calling me. They're telling me I was their mentor. Mentor. Diane, there's no greater role. I'm so grateful for that. So Mike leaves a multi-generation international legacy of Q researchers who are doing important things because of him. He was a humble man who fulfilled his mission in grace, and he passes that commission on to you. So Mike would say thank you and sit down.
Thank you, Dr. Montgomery. There's the last thing that I want to say, and then I want to open it up to anyone else who wants to share any recollections or anything about Mike. Was I had mentioned how encouraging he was to younger Q scholars and all Q scholars as far as that goes. The other thing I think that needs to be mentioned is how often he provoked us to think deeper about the methodology. And I'm going to miss not only his wit and his charm, but his insistence that we think more deeply about the decisions that we make with respect to how we carry out our studies. And he is was just an exemplar. Is there anyone else who'd like to say anything or share any comments? Dr. Logan.
I'll be happy to, but I'm going to sit. Is it okay? Can you hear me? Okay. I thought I'd just read you what I wrote within the first 20 minutes after I got the news. I still think that I'm never going to do better than this. I think I knew Mike longer than anybody here. I think that's fair to say. And we're good friends. I think we have a sort of symbiotic relationship, and G-rated, and we had very positive impact on each other's professional careers and our thinking. The late Michael Stricklin and I met 2 days before we began doctoral studies in mass communication at the University of Iowa in 1974. During our first conversation, I told him I loved guaraná, a Brazilian soft drink made from an indigenous pungent fruit. It smells terrible in raw form, and it tastes terrible in raw form, but turn it into a soft drink, and oh, it's marvelous. Hard to get outside Brazil, though. For years during the holidays, I received guaraná syrup from the Stricklins, who were Peace Corps representatives and later professionals working in Brazil. By the way, I ended up with more than 35 jars of syrup of guaraná. I couldn't drink it all. The syrup, I mean, a tiny bit of syrup would produce 2 gallons of stuff. Okay? So one big jar would last you literally 3 years if it didn't go bad during that time. Mike and I challenged each other to complete our doctorates in 3 years, and we finished on time. Less than 24 hours apart. Similar to what Diane just read about Mike receiving his marching orders. I got mine too, the same day. And the curve that I took in my career, in my life, this is more about Stephenson than it is about Mike. But Mike never let me forget it. Exactly what the advice we received that day. My advice was to work with Tom Linder, who I had never met, who became my boss and my mentor, and by far the most significant part of my career. It was literally, he handed me on that day. We want to work with him, and I was so surprised at the advice because I had heard of him. He was a professor of medicine at the University of Missouri at the time, and I knew very little about it. That was a big scare, as was Mike's. We finished the same day, as was said. We remained friends and confidants for the next 45 years. A couple of weeks before his death, Mike received news of the Career Achievement Award, and something of which I know he was very proud. Besides Brazilian culture and Q methodology, Mike was a professor emeritus at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln School of Journalism, an expert, this is something that a lot of you do not know, an expert on how news organizations can better serve their communities. Mike was involved in how news organizations can revolutionize how they interacted to make communities better places to live. And he did that 2 generations before it became fashionable inside the news media business or inside of journalism schools. And Mike was also a well-known newspaper executive. He was the #2 person and worked with Fort Worth Star-Telegram in Texas, which at that time was a major regional U.S. newspaper and news organization. And he had some similar other major positions during his career. I talked to him 3 days before his death, and I think the thing that I was most grateful for was he retained an admirable metacognition throughout his entire life. That remained constant. His health faded, but his mind never did. Which I think for all of us is the best we can hope for. I get most upset. I think things are a tragedy when it's the reverse. Okay? So I may not look at this the way you do. To me, I'm grateful for him, and I'm grateful for the fact that he had full use of all of his faculties until literally the last second. I know that because I've heard from the rest of his family. I salute his stellar friendship, his contributions, and of course the men.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else? Well, in closing then, I wish that we could take a moment of silence to honor the memory and the gift of Dr. Mike Stricklin.
Take a picture or two to send to the family. I think they're like that. Yes.
Diane, why don't you come up since you read his remarks? I wish that we could take a moment of silence to honor the memory and the gift of Dr. Mike Stricklin.
Take a picture or two to send to the family. I think they're like that. Yes.
Diane, why don't you come up since you read his remarks?